Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa, and I feel so happy to be here with you. This has been a long time coming, and it really has been born of the incredible conversations that I have all the time in my life. And I've had enough people tell me that they would listen if I started a podcast or a YouTube channel. And so here I am. I have so many stories to share, reflections, and so many people in my life who I feel so excited to share with you and to presence really beautiful, thoughtful, intimate dialogue around things that matter very deeply to me and to the communities that I am privileged to be a part of. So I wanted to frame this initial introduction to me through this kind of fun little thing that I came up with in my endless quest to fit all of who I am into a little text box on Instagram called the bio. Ah, and gosh, I'm sure so many of you can relate. So, one iteration a couple months back was me describing places that I like to be, places that I show up to regularly. And what came out was a dance floor, a prayer mat, the page, the stage, or in bed. And I felt really sad that a plane didn't fit like really nicely into that little, you know, like sentence structure. But yeah, I wanted to dive into a little bit of why each of these places mean so much to me as a jumping off point for the kinds of conversations that I feel really excited to have here with all of you. So, a dance floor, which I was on one today at Crossroads Cafe in Bushwick. And my goodness, the way that my life has transformed time and time again on the dance floor. And you'll find that a thread in my existence is the coming to transformational spaces, coming to ceremonial spaces. And I really believe that we can take almost anything we do and turn it into ceremony. And so when I show up to a dance floor, it can often become a ceremonial experience. I have been changed by my experiences in ecstatic dance. I have had incredible, incredible trance-like states um, that I've experienced at Five Rhythms. I've also been a part of a really incredibly beautiful community of people, organization based here in New York that is called Dance Beyond. And they have they host retreats and a camp out that I just went to a couple of weeks ago. So at some point I'll share a little bit more about that experience. And I feel like the body is just this it's what a blessing. What a blessing that we get to exist in these bodies that are like not only built for pleasure and delight, but that are so perfectly designed, so perfectly structured as to keep us alive and breathing and our hearts beating and neurons firing without us having to do anything. This just continues to amaze me. This will never not amaze me. And being able to access the full expression in my body on a dance floor over and over and over again has been one of the greatest gifts of my life. And so we will definitely be talking about dance on this podcast. Ah, oh, goodness gracious. Okay. So, second one, a second place that I show up often, a prayer mat. Oh my word. Oh, I'll begin by saying that I have always had this connection in some way to something greater than me. I did not call that connection God for a long time, or I would kind of use the word God as this mm, replacement for like my connection with all that is, right? Or like not, maybe not replacement, but my mm, experience of nature of the universe, right? And I have really come into such a beautiful, personal, intimate relationship with God, especially in the last couple of years and especially in the last year. And I will talk more about this in a future episode. But it has been one of the most important and precious journeys I have ever taken. And a prayer mat is one of those places that feels like a home to me because I come back to it every single day now, every morning, every evening. Every once in a while, I miss one of those. But I mean, this is just, it is nutrient for my soul. It is necessary for my heart. It is, it has done wonders for my sense of belonging, my sense of being loved by something like a benevolent force in the universe. And I will get more into that. But the prayer mat, actually being on my knees in a devotional posture every single day. It's been one of the greatest homecomings of my life. And so I feel really, really excited to share about and to host conversations with people on this podcast about God and about the spiritual path and about being a mystic and being someone who is able to and interested in holding nuance in what can be a very complex world. And I will say, I find so much simplicity in what is revealed to me when I am in prayer. And so that's all I'll say about that for now. The next place that I have shown up to again and again that has been incredibly meaningful and important for me is the page. I have been writing since I was young, very young, and writing has been a vehicle for so many things for me, for my own self inquiry, for my stream of consciousness, for my journaling and documenting and sharing about my experience of life and like actually putting words to what happens in me internally and using writing to make sense of things that sometimes feel like they don't make sense. I have felt a lot of permission in my writing that I didn't realize for a long time other people have not, don't have, don't have. And there's something about actually physically writing, like pen to paper, that I also feel is so important and I will champion. I love having technology, I love having computers, but writing, like having a tool that goes from the brain to the hand, there's just something special and irreplaceable that happens there. And I literally have a bin, at least one giant bin, probably almost two at this point, of notebooks from, gosh, I think the earliest one that I have right now in my apartment is, I think I was 16. Yeah, so several decades of writing, which is just wild. So, maybe we'll take a peek into some of those old journals as well. We'll see. Oh my gosh, that could be really interesting. Ah, okay. So, the next space that has been really meaningful for me is the stage. The stage. I have been on stages in various ways throughout my life, and interestingly, hmm, I felt really scared for a really long time to be on stage, even though I longed for it. And the first time I remember being on stage, I was fourth grade. I was in fourth grade, and I was in a dance class, and I danced to the Conga song by Gloria Estefan. I was wearing a blue outfit, leotard thing with a skirt that had red and yellow fringe at the ends. And gosh, I'm so glad that my parents put me in a dance class that young. Of course, I didn't continue with dance. I think that it was a mix of my parents needing to tend to three other children and having a lot on their plate. But I was then in a play in sixth grade where I was a cat and I got to crawl around on stage, and that definitely unlocked something in me. Oh, and I wanted to go to school, to college for acting, but I felt too shy. I felt too shy to audition. And so I went to school instead for psychology and then switched to sociology. And mm, my life has still landed me on stages in various ways. That has sometimes looked like singing. I love to sing, feel mm, so like this connection to the divine when I sing, as long as I'm, allow the nerves to sort of be felt through and to open me. I can still feel those butterflies when I'm singing on stage and in front of people. But part of what I would like to talk about at some point is how healing it's also been for me to sing with other people, not in a like context of performance, but in a context of coming together, voices in unison, to simply enjoy the act of making music with our voices. So I have performed, I've sang, on stage. I've danced on stage. I've shared performance poetry. I've done performance art. Um, Gosh, I've spoken a couple of times. I've spoken in front of people in various contexts. Um, but I feel like, yeah, there's so much more for me in that regard. And I will say that I am a lover of the arts. I am an artist, and it took me a long time to claim that title or that, it's not even, it's like so beyond a title. It's like, it's, it's an identity in the sense that in the same way that I am a woman, like I can't not be a woman, I can't not be an artist. So it's kind of funny that it took me a long time to claim that, but that is something, that I can talk about on another episode as well, because I think so many of us grapple with this. Um, but I love the arts. I love creative expression. I feel so regularly enchanted, uplifted, inspired, enlivened by the arts and the various ways that I engage in music and dance and theater and gosh, yeah, it's just such an important part of my life. I will be a patron of the arts for the rest of my life. I will champion the arts for the rest of my life. Oh goodness. So there's that, the stage. Mm. And now in bed, another place that I really, really enjoy being. What is behind my love for being in bed? Well, I have been on a long and winding path to recognizing myself as a mm, deeply feminine woman and a deeply sensitive woman and being. And this journey matters so deeply to me. I have been raised in the United States. I grew up in Connecticut, and I have been raised in a culture that I would describe as being very mm, mental in nature and where the focus is so from the neck up and is quite oriented around doing and achieving and accomplishing things that I would uh, generally characterize as being more masculine in nature. And coming home to my feminine being, my feminine body, heart, womb over the last couple of years. Ooh, talk about a homecoming. This has been a massive one for me. And I feel really, really excited for the conversations that are in store around mm, the feminine and the masculine, around women and men, and the deep repair that is being called for in our culture right now, and that I see happening also in a way that just makes my heart so happy. And coming home to myself as a woman, my biology as a woman, my mm, just feminine nature and like deep desire to inhabit my body as a woman. that has mm, been this invitation for me to rest in a way that I was so unfamiliar with for so long. And certainly that looks like sleep, but it also looks and feels like slowing down so that it's a little cheeky for me to say in bed, right? Because I do enjoy bed, but it's also about living a life in such a way that I am properly positioned in slowness, in mm, a pace that feels good for me and for my body. And oh my goodness, I just want for more women to come home to their rightful feminine pace and place, also inhabiting their bodies, their heart, their womb. This to me is one of it's just some of the most important work, quote unquote work that we can do on the planet right now as women coming deeply, deeply home to ourselves. Ah, goodness gracious. I'll throw in here that part of the path for me in coming deeply home to myself as a woman has been bringing a deep sense of repair to my relationship with men and the masculine and God. And I feel so blessed to be having more and more conversations with women about this because I feel very attuned to the, mm, gosh, the divides between men and women, but also like the deep, deep love that is there at the bottom of all the pain and anger, the longing that is at the bottom of all of that, the longing for union, the longing for connection, the longing for intimacy. This is something that is very, very important in my life, and I feel really excited also for the conversations that are going to be happening in this domain on this podcast. Mm. I'll briefly mention the place that I didn't quite fit it into my little, a dance floor, a prayer mat, the page, the stage, or in bed. So, a plane. I enjoy traveling. I come from very humble beginnings, and I didn't leave my home country until I was in my early 30s. So only a handful of years ago. And I've since been to 12 countries. And when I tell you, I felt terrified to go to Paris for the first time. It was the first place I visited outside of the US, aside from Puerto Rico, which, yes, I've spent time there prior to like leaving the country. And Puerto Rico is its own. It deserves to be counted I feel, amongst the other countries I visited, but that's a conversation for another time. But when I really like left the US was to go to France in 2018 for the first time. 2019. That's right. I moved to New York September 2018, and it was 2019 September that I went to Paris for the first time. And I felt so scared. And and I feel so glad that I did it. So I'm sure that there will be travel stories. Mm, yeah, travel is something that has also transformed my heart and my vision of what's possible for human beings. My love for like people and for culture and for the beauty of this planet and the people who inhabit it has just grown. It just continues to grow. So, mm. Ah, so much, so much, so much to share. I feel, yeah, I've been mm, really sitting with recently that there are two pillars in my life that are really um, guiding me in the choices that I make. And those two pillars are devotion and creation. That devotion is mm, my devotion to life itself, my devotion to God, my devotion to being of service, my devotion to men and the masculine, my devotion to women and the feminine heart and womb, my devotion to all of humanity, to the planet. I remember being very, very young. It's like one of the first things that I remember perceiving when I had the capacity to like have awareness of the world and what I thought about it. I remember having faith, having a deep faith in humanity, even when I was really young. And so to, as an adult woman, come into this place of devotion, such a rich and beautiful word. I feel that in a sense, we are all devotional by nature, that we all have something that we are returning to over and over again. There's a whole conversation I would love to have at some point about mm, addiction versus devotion and us taking responsibility for that. We are beings that desire to come over and over and over again something, to something. We live by the sun and the moon. We are cyclical by nature. We have seasons. Women have cycles. Men have cycles, right? Women's is just a little more like talked about. We have hormonal cycles, right? We have the cycle of life, birth, adolescence, adulthood, death, and everything in between. The cycles in terms of like the archetypes that we carry throughout different seasons of life. Devotion is a key to my existence, and it is it is such a rich conversation to be inside of. So, that being said, creation. Creation is how my devotion takes form, how devotion itself takes form, so that whatever I do, whatever I create, even the creation of this podcast, this conversation, that it is embedded with the devotion that lives inside my being, inside my heart. And just as I was saying, I will champion art for the rest of my life. It's really at the heart of this is championing creation, that get to we are creational by nature, and we get to create not only our lives and our experience of our lives, but the world. That to be in connection with ourselves as creators is to take such um, magnificent responsibility for the future for us as human beings, future for the planet. So, oh goodness gracious, so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I can feel all the places that I am going to go inside of this podcast, this conversation, this creation. I already have some incredible people that are on board with being guests, and I just feel really honored to have your listening and your attention, and I don't take it lightly. Oh, and on a very like a basics note, um, if you don't know, I currently live in New York. I live in Brooklyn, and just a little bit about my what landed me here, um, before I close this initial introduction. I grew up in Connecticut. I went to college there, University of Connecticut, and I went out on a road trip with um, my first partner. We went out west and intended to come back to Connecticut, and I would finish school. I was 11 credits away from graduating, and we just stayed in Boulder, Colorado. We stopped there, and 2 weeks turned into 2 months, turned into 2 years. And wow, yeah, I then had a really clear impulse to move to Austin, Texas, and so uh, I did with that gentleman, and then I left him about 9 months later and stayed in Austin for 7 years, for 7 years. And wow, so much growth, so much growth. My ultimate intention, though, since I was young, was to live in New York City. I used to take the train in from where I lived in Connecticut, and always just been so enchanted by the city and the vibrancy and the people and the crossroads of culture that exists here. And so come this September 2025, it will be 7 years since I moved here. Although there was a time in there right around, well, after COVID happened that I was essentially nomadic for a year and a half. But whew, what a time. What a time. So that's where I am placed on the planet right now. And just a little window into mm, my heart, my story, and the like beautiful life that has birthed this desire to share conversations in a greater way and to bring more people into the kinds of conversations that I get to have with people. Mm. It is through our conversations, through our dialogue that we co-create the world. We co-create the world that we want to see. And mm, I just feel so excited to be here with you all. Thank you again for listening. And yes, so much more to come. Sending you such deep blessing and wishing you a beautiful, beautiful day, evening, night, week, season, summer, wherever you are in the